Hey, what's happening, guys? What's going on? YouTube, you guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels. In today's video, we're going to be covering a story from Zero Hedge titled The Social Contract is Broken, Why Millennials Who Lack Rich Parents Feel Increasingly Hopeless. Now, I didn't necessarily think this was like the most amazing article, but kind of the broader message that this is sending is kind of an interesting topic to me. And it's kind of a recurring theme that I see popping up more and more again. Now, we've done a lot of stories over the years on, these funny stories about millennials and their avocado toast. Millennials have continually gotten screwed throughout their adult lives, right? Like the older millennials graduated into, the 2008 housing crisis, a bad job market. Older, more established workers were taking entry-level jobs because everybody needed whatever they could get. And because of that, millennials, oftentimes, especially the older millennials, wound up working retail or taking years to actually get into their career. It took a while to recover from that. Now we had, the beer cough. I'm not going to say the word because maybe we can actually get some people to see this video if I don't say that word. But yeah, then we had the beer cough. 40% of all money created in all of U.S. history was created in the past year. Obviously that's going to result in inflation. Your buying power isn't what it used to be. Because of crushing student loan debt, a lot of millennials have been kind of kept out of the housing market. And even those millennials who, got a good job and saved up money and were saving for a down payment and were maybe just now in the position to be able to buy a home, it's like, oh, sorry, housing prices have gone up 30% in the past year. You don't have enough for a down payment. Or even if you do have your down payment, there's nothing on the market right now. So everybody's only accepting cash offers. And, it's definitely not going to get any better. Biden wants to spend, $5 trillion or whatever it is now. While this technically isn't a tax, the buying power of your money is being drained. And that's why we're seeing everybody buying assets. That's why the stock market's surging. That's why everybody's buying houses. And that's why crypto is surging right now. Nobody wants to be holding on to cash. The US dollar is trash, right? So that's kind of what this article is going after. And I think Zero Hedge is going to be doing kind of a series of articles about millennials. And, it seems like I always kind of enjoy these articles. It seems like a lot of you guys do as well. I'm sure most millennials and Gen Zers can kind of relate to this. And so that's what I wanted to kind of talk about in this video. And one thing that we're kind of seeing, I saw another article the other day kind of going along with this theme that talked about how millennials are getting into really risky investments like GameStop, Nokia, Dogecoin. And it's basically because that's the only way to get ahead, right? Like traditional investments aren't going to do anything for you. A lot of people feel like the stock market's overinflated. I think everybody's always kind of known that the stock market was rigged. But when we saw Robinhood, shut down trading for all these stocks when, the little guy started winning, it kind of really highlighted, everybody knew the stock market was rigged, but it really kind of highlighted that, like, if you somehow do wind up winning, the rules of the game are going to be changed. And it kind of reminds me of playing a game with my little nephew, right? If we're playing Candyland or Chutes or Ladders, no matter what card I draw, no matter what card he draws, even if I would win the game, obviously, kids always change the rules. When you play a game with a kid, it's, basically the game is called I Win. And, I got an orange. I should only go ahead 2 spaces, but I'm just going to skip to the end. And I feel like that's kind of what this, we'll use the word the system. When we talk about the system, what are we talking about? Society, corporations, government. It's like no matter what you do, the system is going to win. I don't think it makes any sense to go to college anymore. I don't think traditional investments make much sense. Don't get into the rat race of trying to buy brand name clothing and cars and things like that. I think your money would be much better spent saving it, investing it, growing it, and trying to gain some sense of financial independence. If you have to have a BMW, if you have to have a Mercedes, you're basically just locking yourself into the hamster wheel for that much longer. And we've seen a lot of articles, again, that talk about how millennials are getting into these risky investments because it's the only way to get ahead. But also a lot of millennials and Zoomers are doing are kind of living less traditional lives. They're getting married later. They're not having kids. A lot of people are moving overseas to countries with a lower cost of living where they can do some digital nomad thing or, teach ESL and just kind of opting out of the system. We're also seeing people live in vans and tiny homes and people homesteading. And I think you basically have two choices, right? Like it makes zero sense to be part of the system and get a job or try to do good in school. Like you can either be an entrepreneur and blaze your own trail and kind of take responsibility for your own life. And that's really the only chance you have of, a job stands for just over broke, right? You're never going to get ahead with a job. So you have two choices. You can either start your own business, find your own way to hustle and earn money, or you can just kind of opt out of the system. And, that would be something like homesteading or moving overseas or something else. I've been kind of fortunate in that I've had, some successful entrepreneurial ventures over the years. And that's kind of my plan, is just to kind of opt out of the system. Yeah, I'm still going to make money on my own. I'm still going to do side hustles. I'm still going to start businesses. But really, like, I'm trying to buy a house down in Florida. Plan on paying cash for the house. I'll probably keep a house back here in Chicago and rent it out, but keep something in case I ever, maybe when my parents get older or something like that, if I ever want to move back here. But basically setting myself up in a situation where I have very low expenses. I can just kind of do things that I want with my time. Yeah, I will probably need to continue earning some money, but that can be small time side hustles that take a minimal amount of time. And I plan on kind of like gardening, spending time at the beach, hanging with my dog, reading, working out, and just kind of doing what I want to do. And that's kind of just, I'd be kind of curious to hear your guys' take. For any of you guys who are just coming out of school now, do you have any faith in the system? Do you have any faith that you'll be successful, getting a job and kind of going the traditional route? Or, do you plan on opting out of the system in some way? Are you going to live in a van? Are you going to move over to Thailand? Are you going to, do some homesteading? Are you planning on, maybe living the fire or lean fire lifestyle, trying to up your income, cut your expenses, sacrifice a bit for a couple years, and then be able to, retire and just kind of live frugally and kind of opt out of the system. But let's kind of get into this article. So this one's titled, "The Social Contract is Broken, Why Millennials Who Lack Rich Parents Feel Increasingly Hopeless." The worsening precarity of the millennial generation has been a hot topic for financial press over the last year, and it hasn't failed to disappoint. Think pieces about crushing student loan debt, rising housing prices, placing homeownership further out of reach, and the soul-crushing intensity of the formerly sought-after jobs in finance have abounded. And now the Financial Times has launched a new series where it explores the biggest problems facing its millennial readers. And what the report discovered might come as a surprise to some. Picking up where that PowerPoint about miserable working conditions of Goldman Jr. analysts left off, and the FT reported that even millennials with strong resumes and good jobs who did everything right are drowning in insecurity. And I think I kind of failed to mention this, but beyond getting a good job out of school and things like that, a lot of people were taught, get a good job, save, invest. And, if you're saving right now, your money is losing more and more value every day as the government prints more money. As inflation occurs and housing prices and food prices and everything goes up, your money goes away. So you can't, there is no saving there is no saving anymore. Saving isn't rewarded. Saving is basically just a means of losing your money very slowly. Let's see. As the FT sees it, millennials' fate will depend largely upon whether they're the progeny of wealthy families or not. Those who can depend on the bank of mom and dad for an interest-free loan or a generous inheritance will always have an advantage in procuring the best homes, jobs, and school placement as entry to the upper echelon of society. Still largely depends on having access to the best schools and alumni networks. Millennials who don't enjoy these advantages will be forced to compete in a market set up to cater to those who do. But while that conclusion is relatively self-evident, an even more surprising detail from the FT's report is that once safe careers in investment banking and private equity no longer convey the same promise of long-term security. As an example of the phenomenon, FT introduced Akin Ogalundele, who works in London's financial sector and lives in the city with his wife and young family. The fact that he's struggling to pay his bills in a rental flat with little hope of affording his own home anytime soon has given him a sense that the social contract is broken for his generation, something that's shared by many young people and not just in London. Many of the story's most striking examples are delivered with a quote. Here are a few of our favorites. "If I carry on in the way that I am, I'm not sure what I'll be able to pass down," he says. "It can't be good for the country. The disparities are just going to grow and grow. The wealthy are going to grow wealthier, and those that aren't will get more and more removed." For Kilgan Mangan, who graduated during the pandemic last year and struggled to find a job. It feels as if we're drowning in insecurity with no help in sight. A 20-something who works for a central bank says, I sometimes have this feeling that we are edging towards a precipice or falling in it already. A 30-something who works in private equity in the UK turns to collateralized debt obligations for a metaphor to describe the position of his generation. The space I feel I occupy in the socio-political order is akin to being the first lost tranche in the debt stack, he says. Whenever anything bad happens, I have no doubt that because we lack political and economic clout, we will be left holding the bag. And we kind of saw that with the beer cough this past year, where small businesses were shut down and, corporations like Amazon and Walmart were made even richer, not because the market determined that, but because the government shut down small businesses. At the moment, while the wealth is still held by older generations, it shows up in the data as a difference between generations, but wealth doesn't disappear. It's going to flow down, and then it moves on to being an issue about inequality within younger generations, says David Sturrock, an IFS senior research economist. It's basically saying how much you stand to gain depends on who your parents are and the wealth that they have. Many developed countries share a lot of the same dynamics, he adds. Someone else says, I ate spaghetti for a month in 2009 because the company I worked for was owned by a private equity firm, which thought it best to cut me so it could buy out smaller competitors, says Jim from California in the U.S. They eventually hired me back for close to half the pay. Way to develop talent, right? And then somebody else says, after 30 or so rejections, I was chosen out of a pool of 2,500 applicants to undergo a psychometric test, followed by a video interview, followed by an assessment center, followed by a week-long virtual scheme, culminating in an interview before being offered a 2-year training contract, says Hadrian, a recent UK graduate. We are competing with machines and bots, an ever-increasing population of skilled humans, says another. But while some might dismiss these quotes as more whining from millennials who have nobody but themselves to blame for being duped into taking out hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for a 4-year liberal arts degree, the FT also peppered the story with data supporting this vision of a downwardly mobile fate. It started with the data showing fewer millennials will out-earn their parents, and how feelings of career insecurity are shared by young people around the world in both developing and emerging economies. Millennials, meanwhile, struggling with a stubbornly low share of household wealth, partly a factor of the wealth-draining impact of student loans. We've talked about that before. Boomers at the age of millennials today had like 6 times more money. And even Generation X, which was the generation just before millennials, has a substantial amount of more money in stocks, the housing market, and savings than millennials. According to an editor's note, the story is merely the first in a series about the myriad of problems facing the millennial generation. While we're sure its audience will appreciate the FT's attempt to court more youthful readers, we suspect it might come off as a tad whiny. After all, millennials just had the opportunity to get in on one of the greatest wealth creation engines of all time, crypto, while boomer CEOs were mostly left scratching their heads. So that is kind of one true thing. Millennials who kind of had the foresight or maybe the luck of being made aware of crypto in recent years did have one chance, in cryptocurrency for some kind of upward mobility. Alex Becker recently did kind of an interesting video about this, and he actually said this was kind of stupid, and I kind of agree with him to an extent. He said that, a lot of people are looking at cryptocurrency as a way to kind of level the playing field. A lot of people are looking at cryptocurrency as their way to get rich or, their opportunity to kind of step up in the world. And well, that is true, and I do think people should be investing in cryptocurrency. Kind of the idea that you're banking on something that you have no control over isn't necessarily the best idea. He was kind of encouraging people to start businesses or start a business in the crypto space or find some money to find some way to make money and earn money in the crypto space. And I definitely agree with that. But I definitely kind of agree with the idea that, just banking on crypto, something that you have no control over, maybe isn't the best plan. So we'll cut this video off here. Let me know what you guys think about this. In future articles of this, Broken Millennial series, we'll try to cover those because I always kind of enjoy them, and it seems like you guys do as well. If you guys enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button below. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.